Check us out to hear the latest on life in the volunteer state. Yvonnca and her guests discuss everything from life, love, and business with a Tennessee flair.
It's a Tennessee thing.
Always relatable, always relevant, and always a good time. This is Talking Tennessee, and now your host, Yvonnca.
This episode is brought to you by the Landes team, your go-to real estate family in East Tennessee. If you are looking to buy or sell, we are the ones you should call. Give us a call at 865-660-1186 or check out our website at YvoncaSellsRealEstate.com. That's Yvonnca, YVONNCA, sellsrealestate.com.
Welcome back to Talking Tennessee with Yvonnca. I am your host. And this week, I am featuring Pastor Chris Battle. Welcome to Talking Tennessee.
Thank you for having me today.
Most definitely. Viewers, this has been a work in progress. I reached out to Pastor Battle last year, and our schedules was really packed, and they stay packed. But I truly believe this is when God really wanted it to happen. I have to tell you that he has been recommended to me by so many different people in our community, and they talked about what all you're doing in the community. They talked about who you are, who you've been in the past. They talked about different things that they've watched you evolve and just keep growing this community. So first, let me give you your flowers and tell you thank you for everything that you do for our community, because that is truly a God-sent thing.
Thank you.
So let's get into it. Who is Chris Battle?
Who is Chris Battle? I think at the core,
Okay.
Chris Battle was this little shy little boy who loves God and wants to make everybody happy. I think that's, if you had to take off all the layers,
Yes.
I think that's who you would find.
Yes. But throughout life, I think you've probably realized in certain areas you can't make everybody happy. Wish you could.
I have learned that the hard way.
The hard way. Yes. I think we all learn that, but I think that we have to remember that, because there's times that we really want to make somebody happy in things, but for whatever reason, it just doesn't work that way. But I think the best part about it is you having the heart to want to be pleasing.
Well, I shouldn't, maybe, at my core, I want to see a world which is at peace, it's shalom, where everything is there, everybody's needs are met. Doesn't mean you're not going to have problems.
Right.
I think that's what the kingdom is all about. It's about this place of shalom where everybody's whole, complete, dare I say happy.
Yes. Yes.
That's what the goal I'm working for in community.
You're basically trying to do your part.
Stay in my lane.
Yes. Sometimes God will take you out of that lane and God will say, okay, I need you to go over here. And you're like, no, God. And he's like, yeah, you going.
Well, I think for me,
willingly or not willingly.
For me, it was, I had to understand what that lane was. I was kind of angry at God for taking so long,
Okay.
Or maybe I was,
be honest.
Maybe I was slow about listening.
Yes.
Or maybe it was just for me, it wasn't time yet, I was telling somebody the other day, I said, I wish I would have known this work 20 years ago. When my knees were feeling a little bit.
Yes. It's funny you say that, because last week I was thinking, with the wisdom you get when you grow older, I hope, is that you think, gosh, I wish I would have known that a long time ago, how I could have applied that and stopped a lot of things. And so that went through my mind last week. So we got something in common. So how long have you been in Knoxville?
I moved to Knoxville in 2008.
2008?
I'm from Cincinnati, Ohio originally. Grew up there, went to college, go Morehouse.
Yes.
Left Morehouse, I graduated from Morehouse, went to Southern Seminary in Louisville, Kentucky. Got called to a church in Bowling Green, Kentucky.
Okay.
Which was actually 38 years ago this past Sunday, Father's Day, and then went to Hackensack, New Jersey.
Okay.
Then from Hackensack, I went back to Cincinnati.
Oh, wow.
And stayed another about 15 years or so, and then got called here to Tabernacle Baptist Church here in 2008.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you're married.
Yes,
Okay.
I'm married to my wife. Well,
Please.
Yeah.
Please tell
I guess
who your wife is.
I guess it's good to be married
Yes.
to your wife.
Yes,
as opposed to
most
somebody else's
definitely.
wife. Yeah. Her name is Toma Battle.
Okay.
And we have 19 children.
Okay.
15 of which are we have adopted or have legal custody over. Yeah.
19.
Yeah.
Yours 19. Okay.
That's a lot of folks.
And let me say this: I have a biological child and I have an adopted child, and you can relate to this. We love. There's no difference. We just love, that type of thing. But it's such a great feeling to know that for when you saved a child and you gave that child love and you showed them the world, as best you could. So to do that for 19 kids, that's commendable in itself. I mean, to have the patience for one, for 19 kids, and just life could be hard or life could be easy, but you didn't choose either one. You just said, I'm just going to help somebody.
Well, yeah, I'm not going to say we came out. That was our okay. We're going to get married and have all these children.
Yes.
No, that was not the case at all.
No.
And my sister once asked me. Well, we were talking. She said, "Chris, I don't think I could go foster because as soon as I get attached to the child,
Yes.
they'll take the child.
Yes.
Move like that." And I said, Kay, how I look at this is give that child all the love you can. Show them some semblance of what normalcy looks like.
Mm-hmm.
Some semblance of functionality.
Yes.
Okay, I'm not saying my sister's just as dysfunctional as I am. But some semblance of what a family looks like.
Uh-huh.
So that even if they are taken away, even if they do leave, they'll be able to reflect on that period of time that you're together and say, hey, this situation here, it doesn't have to be like this.
Yes.
There is another way.
Yes.
And I think a lot of our young people, some old people, have not seen options.
Yes.
They
I
haven't
do
seen
agree
that
with that.
there are other ways to do things.
There's other options, and then, the opportunity to grow and the opportunity to see through someone else's lenses, that type thing. And I think with my son, I've got a daughter and a son, and I'm learning that raising a boy and a girl is so different.
Oh,
it's so different.
Give me boys.
Oh, okay, so I would say, give me girls.
You can have them.
Yes, boys are hard.
Girls are ridiculous.
Girls are, they're chatty. I'll say girls are chatty, but boys, they try you. They try you, and you have to, show them who wins. That type thing. But I think that was God's plan. We had at the time when I adopted him, we had 6 miscarriages. We've had a total of 10. And we had given up, and my husband's adopted. And so David one day was like, what do you think about adoption? Okay, this is way before my son. And I said, I'd be open to that. And he said, if I ever adopted a child, I would want to really teach them, how to grow in life as an adopted child. He said, because that was me, and so months and months later, the opportunity came. And so I commend you for it, because I'm like, I understand where your sister's coming from, because we did kinship. We didn't do foster care. Mm-hmm. We knew the family. And so I never forget when I got my son, the social worker says to me, okay, do not get attached. Well, the moment they hand you that baby, you're going to get attached. That was the first thing they said to me, is do not get attached. And I was just like, how can you love and show this kid, especially infant, love, and you tell them no attachment?
That's ridiculous.
Yes. And so,
exactly.
Exactly. Well, they did.
And for us,
Yes.
I had 2 sons from my first marriage, and when me and Toma got married, we had 5 miscarriages. And that's why we went the adoptive route. And I'll never forget, I was running a revival in Baltimore, Maryland. And she called me. She said, Chris, they found a sibling group of 5. Yeah, it was a sibling group of 5, but they were living in 3 different homes and they wanted to bring them together. Can we take them? I said, if you good with it, baby, I'm good with it, And she said, well, I already told them yes, but we'll
She said, listen, I just want you to feel like that I consider.
And then we had our first child together. Then we had another one.
Yes.
And then, but it's like, it's like if an elephant steps on your foot
yes,
and another elephant jumps on its back, it ain't gonna make a difference.
Yes, it's not. It's not. That's the truth. It's not.
It ain't gonna make a difference.
Your situation was kind of like with mine when I got the call. My husband, where we shoot in this office is the studio and my husband's office, and he was in the part of the house, and he was walking through, and I told him, the situation, and I said, can we take him? And he goes, yeah, and he walks off. Okay, he said, yeah, we can, and he walks off, and he walks back in here. Okay, and then he comes back and he goes, did I just say we could take a child? And from there on, the rest of the story. He's 15 years old. He just graduated from 9th grade, going to 10th grade, and we're one big happy family. But I will say adoption is a great thing. Can it be trying? Yes, I'm not going to tell y'all it's not. But it is a great thing, and you're saving a child, and it's a great option. So let me ask you this. Why do you love this community?
Why?
Yes.
I'm trying to remember when I fell in love with Knoxville. That's a darn good. You should have sent that question to me.
Isn't that a good question? I told you I wouldn't. I wouldn't throw something at you, but listen, I'm gonna give you a good question.
Ultimately, it's the people. It's the people in the community.
Yes.
I've met some wonderful, loving, crazy,
yes,
peace-loving people in this community, and I've always invested in the communities I've pastored.
Okay.
I've always lived in the communities I've pastored.
Okay.
Because I believe that. Because I work, play, pray, and play in the same zip code.
Yes.
So I believe in that, and I've always been one who likes to see the beauty and the wonder of people, the image of God in people, and grow on that.
Yes.
Now some folks, you got to look real hard.
He's gonna look real hard.
Yeah, real hard. But we'll find that that there's beauty and wonder in everybody, and I told somebody the other day. I said, I think one of my faults is I genuinely like people.
Yes.
I genuinely like people, and so it's the people, it's the support that I've received, and
East Tennessee is different.
It's definitely different.
It's different, and I think the biggest thing with East Tennessee is I'm not trying to say East Tennessee is perfect. I'm not saying that.
Well, we know that.
Before people, because some people are like, we're all balls. I'm like, no, there's some parts of East Tennessee that could be better, but I think the biggest thing about our community is what I appreciate. That we can go in a grocery store, maybe not know somebody, and they still speak.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? When there's a call of duty, someone gets sick, someone is in need. It just seems like East Tennessee rallies. And I'm speaking of, from experience. When my husband got sick, when I told you off camera, 11 years ago, there were so many churches. Well, first of all, his story just went like wildfire and grew. And a friend of mine put it on Facebook. I didn't want it on Facebook, but God God knew what he was doing, because this friend put it on Facebook, and he was the only one that I didn't tell not to, because I didn't think he would. Put it on Facebook, and he asked people to pray for David. And it took off. But there was so many people that came together for me that did not know me from Adam. There were churches that were reaching out all over the country, literally saying, he's on our prayer list. He's this East Tennessee man. And that to me, I'm not saying other cities are not great, but to me, I'm East Tennessee all day, every day, because I love how we rally. You know, we may get mad at each other at times. We may not speak sometimes, but it's something about East Tennessee brings us back together. Do you agree with that?
I would agree with that to a certain extent.
Yes,
And,
yes.
I believe particularly in the African American community, we would see that.
Yes.
Even to the expanded community, we have some hurdles that we got to
We
cross,
do. We do. I agree with that.
You know,
I totally agree with that. And that leads me to my next question. Two-part question. What led you into ministry in Knoxville, Tennessee? Let's start with that.
Well, I've been pastoring in different cities across the country, or up and down the East Coast, I guess you could say.
Let's go back for 1 second.
Sure.
Viewers, Pastor Battle has been in ministry for 43 years. He has been a pastor. 43 years?
33 of those were
Wait.
institutional.
Yeah, no, wait a minute. 43 years in ministry, 33 years in pastoring.
Correct.
So, now, go ahead. I just want to give them the backstory.
What was your question?
Your question is, what led you to ministry in Knoxville?
So we were we were a part of a congregation in Cincinnati. We were doing well, but we just felt it was time to leave.
Okay.
And my wife put out she started filling out applications for me.
She said, let's
go to the.
She said it's time.
And Tabernacle extended a call to me, and it was a fit.
Yes.
I really believe. And I had come here planning on retiring here.
Okay.
This is probably my last church, and boom, I'm through. But then the trajectory changed. God threw me a curveball.
Them curveballs, they be brutal sometimes. And that's my next question. What is your thoughts of the church? Of the current state of the church? The current state.
I'm gonna tell my story.
Go ahead.
Answer your question.
Tell me.
So when I moved here, again, I had 30 years under my belt.
Mm-hmm.
And I said, I'm going to come approach this with a more philosophical approach. I think I know what I'm doing now.
Okay.
And my question was, how can our church impact the community?
Okay.
And so we moved here in 2008, and during the interviewing process, one of the questions was, if you become our pastor, what would be one of the first things you would do?
Okay.
I had been on a tour of East Knoxville.
Mm-hmm.
And I said, well, the first thing we're going to do is clean that cemetery across the street. Okay. Now, I've been asked that question before, and I give them, brush off, oh, I want to sit and look at the community and sit with the people and understand the needs of the city and
Yes.
I said, no, we're going to clean that because Oddfellow Cemetery was a mess. And I said, it's overgrown, headstones are knocked over, and most of the people buried there were born in slavery. I said, it's an embarrassment to our history. I'm not even from here. I'm not even from here, and that's an embarrassment.
It is.
We're going to clean that cemetery.
I'm not from here either. Keep going.
So they called me, I think in September.
Mm-hmm.
First week of December, I think it was. We were out there cleaning. About 30 of us.
Okay.
I said, we're going to clean this.
He said, we're going to go clean.
We're going to clean it. And we're mowing, we're chainsawing, we're putting headstones back up. We got bags and bags of debris we've collected. And this brother pulls up in a pickup truck. He stops me and starts thanking us for what we're doing. Thank you for investing in the community. Thank you for doing this, da 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 da. So me and my thinking, I done caught me a fish.
Okay.
I got me a potential member.
Yes.
And I said, brother, won't you come join us at the church? And he looked me in the eye and he said these words, and I quote, I ain't come to your damn church. And he pulled off.
Oh, wow.
But that was my response too. So
especially after he's
yes, his commendation turned to consternation.
Yes, yes,
you know? And
yes.
I'm flabbergasted, but it plagued me. It still plagues me.
Yes.
You know. And then fast forward to 2016.
Okay.
Concord Baptist Church did a study on church attendance in Knoxville.
Mm-hmm.
And it's the buckle of the Bible Belt. And 20% of Knoxvillians go to church on a regular basis. 20%. And regular was considered once a month. Yeah. And so roughly 40% are done with church. They used to go, don't go anymore. Love Jesus, can't stand the institution, or consider themselves spiritual. And the other 40% from the study are have no religious affiliation. And I'm like, well, don't look like anybody's going to anybody's church, you know? And I'm talking to my pastor friends across denominational lines, across racial lines, across the country. They're telling me the same thing. Attendance is going down. We're having to reconsider our budget, you know, because we're not getting as much money.
Right.
And this is before the pandemic.
Right, right.
This is before the pandemic.
Yeah, you're saying 2016.
You know? And I got to thinking, I'm like, well, maybe we need to do church differently.
Okay.
But I don't know what that looks like. I'm a baby boomer.
And I get that. I get that.
I'm a baby boomer.
You may see that there needs change, but what change?
I don't know what it looks like.
What is it supposed
and
to
so
be?
the stuff we were doing that we thought would, you know, in retrospect, the stuff that I would do to try to get attendance up, whatever,
right,
was really for the folk who are already coming, you know.
Oh,
and so
you really teaching right now.
So 2018, we had a piece of property, and I've always done a little gardening.
Okay.
You know, I don't consider myself a good gardener now. I just know that God put something in a seed that when you put it in the soil, give it some warmth and some water, it's gonna grow.
It's gonna grow.
Okay. You know, and I've always done this a little bit at the house, right here and there, and we had a plot of land like 2 doors down from the church. I'm like, why don't we do a garden here? It took me 3 years to get this garden going. Right?
Okay.
So I started like in 2015.
Okay.
It was 2018 when we got it going.
Okay.
And I called a friend of mine who was working at the botanical bar. I said, hey, come help me talk. So I want to do a community garden. You know, give me the ins and outs. You know, help me design this space or whatever. And in that conversation, we started talking about food disparity and food desert.
Mm-hmm.
And it was literally at that point that the trajectory of my life changed. I'm like, hold up.
I'm in a church.
I'm in a church, and we have a significant problem in our community. People are literally dying a slow death, hypertension, obesity, sugar diabetes, heart issue, and it's all based on diet because they don't have access to fresh fruits and vegetables.
Yes.
They have access to Burger King, they can have it their way anyway.
Yeah.
They got access to, you know, Pizza Palace and McDonald's and
Chick-fil-A.
Arby's, Chick-fil-A. They got all, and they got every corner store, every dollar store, and but yet there's no grocery store, there's no place to sell fresh produce. The USDA says if 1/3 of your community is living in poverty and more than a mile away from a grocery store or farmer's market, you're considered a food desert. Mm-hmm. We were 2 miles away.
See.
So and then poverty, places of poverty is always a transportation problem. People can't afford cars. The median income in the zip code that we're working in is $17,000 a year.
Yeah.
It says they say it takes like $9,000 a year just to maintain a car in Knoxville.
See.
Okay. So if I'm making 17 and I got a car, That knocks it down to what, 8,000 already.
Yeah.
So we got some issues. So I didn't know all this at first. I just knew that there was a problem here. I'm like, well, maybe what we could do is get other churches to start growing gardens.
Okay.
Start doing gardens. Reached out to some pastor friends. But something else happened. I'm at the garden. My wife would tell you I was there every morning. I'd go to McDonald's and get my coffee. Get my coffee, right? And I'd wait for the son to come on, son, let's go. So I'm ready to go out here and work in the garden. And
gardening is peaceful.
Yes, we come from the soil. That's why there's that peace in the soil.
Yeah.
Maybe that's what the song should have said. There's peace in the soil for me. Anyway.
Yeah. Anyway.
Yeah, you can cut that part out. But anyway, what happened was people started coming to the garden. Community people were coming to the garden. I'm meeting people. I'll never forget. I met this woman.
Did you hear him say they were coming to the garden?
Who would never come to my Black Baptist brick and mortar church.
Are y'all hearing what he's saying? They
came
wouldn't come to the church. They would come to the garden.
Came to the garden.
And why is that?
I think because it is a place of peace. There is no condemnation in the garden.
Plus, I think it's seeing something grow.
It's visible.
It is, and it brings joy.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? And I'm not saying the church, there's not joy in the church. I'm not saying that. What I'm saying is that the joy, that garden signifies joy. You know, it doesn't signify attitudes. It doesn't signify, people not getting along. It doesn't signify any of that. It's only joy, and growth.
Yeah.
So I can see why you'd want to go to the garden.
People come to the garden. And like I said, we had black folk, white folk, straight folk, gay folk,
just
old
everybody
folk coming to the garden, And I'm like,
why is that?
I didn't really care why. To be honest with
yeah.
you. I'm like, well,
you're
hold
just
up.
happy they come.
They're coming to the garden. And I was going through something in my life, in my understanding of church.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think I said before, I was really starting to realize that church is not a space. It's not a place. It's not a address. It's not a point on my GPS. It's who I am. It's what we do.
And it's going against what you were taught.
Yes.
Let's talk about
yes.
Let's talk about that.
And I will. And because, and I'm like,
because we're taught, go to church.
Go to
and
church.
The church is a building.
And church is a building.
Yeah, keep going.
And but folks would come to the garden.
Yes.
So they wouldn't come to my
wasn't a building.
My bleak church.
Yes.
Right? and still won't. I had a guy stop at the farm one day, a few months ago. He goes, I love your mission. I just don't like the God of your mission.
Oh wow.
But he was in the garden.
He still was in the garden.
Still in the garden. You see, I think again, as I was saying, my understanding of church was changing. Mm-hmm. Okay. And I'm like, well, if they're coming to the garden, maybe that should be the church.
So let me ask you a question. Historically, the church has been, in our community, the church has been the cornerstone of our communities for generation after generation. But these days and times, people are running from the church. People are not going to the church. What do you think, of your opinion, why do you think, if that's been the cornerstone of our communities, okay? I tell people, let me go back a little bit. I tell people, I'm like, the two things that people don't get that slavery taught us. It taught us family, and it taught us God, okay? Because that's all we had. Mm. We didn't have a lot in slavery, so, but in these days and times, so many people are running from the church. So what do you think the reason why is?
I think I think a few reasons actually, but I think one is that I think oftentimes our churches have become irrelevant.
Okay.
We're solving questions. We're answering questions that nobody's asking, like the community's not asking. Okay. Secondly, we don't work together. The civil rights movement was started in the church, but churches had to work together.
Yes.
You know, our church, the way our structures are built is because we're set up for competition, not cooperation. You know.
Teach, Pastor.
And I can go on for that, but I don't know how much time.
I don't understand. What I don't understand is, okay, we all say we love the Lord. Well, the Lord is of love and unity.
Yeah.
Not division, unity, okay? I don't understand if I'm a pastor, you're a pastor. Why can't we be unified and worship together and not be worried about?
Well, you know why. The reason why is because if I don't get the money, if I don't get people in there and get the money to pay these bills and to pay these salaries, I don't have a job.
Okay.
Because the structure of our congregations, in my opinion, is really built around income.
Oh.
It's built around income. So the matrix that we use to determine church success, I call them the BPs.
The BPs.
The BPs. Butts and pews.
Butts and pews. Okay.
Bucks in the plate. Baptisms in the pool. And building programs. If you have that going on, if you got the butts in the pews, which people tend to think brings more bucks in the plate.
Right,
okay?
right.
If you got the people coming, they'll have more baptisms in the pool.
Right.
And if you're always building, that always looks like that you're successful. That's the matrix we use for church success. And if we can get more people in, we can get more people. That's why we're competitive. That's why we're competitive, because I need those people. We're fighting for the same people. We're in this small pool and we're trying to fight for the same fish, right?
Yes.
I need you to come to my church. You need them to go to your church or whatever. I was telling the guy one day, I was like, hey man, you guys start doing like we were moving to small groups and homes.
Okay.
And this guy told me, he's a friend of mine, he pastors another state. He goes, no, I can't do that because they might try to go and start a church. I'm like, well, what's wrong with that?
Right.
You know, but if they go start another church, that's
then
money.
Then he loses members.
That's right.
That goes to the new church.
So it gets based around that. Okay.
But if it's that,
it's the wrong matrix.
it is, because if it's that, if we say we're a child of God and we're following God, God said, I will provide.
Yeah.
He said, just build the kingdom. He said, I will provide.
But see, there you go. But you said the key word, kingdom.
Okay.
Kingdom is the key word. He didn't say build individual kingdoms.
He did. He said build kingdom.
Kingdom. And
yes.
Kingdom requires cooperation.
Yes.
You see. And I began to look at church so much different. I'm like, you know what? We're supposed to be building kingdom.
We are.
If I asked you what the gospel is, I ask this question all the time to the classes I teach, and people give me the same answer. The gospel is the death, burial, and resurrection and soon returning of Christ. I'm like, you haven't read the Bible. Because every time you read gospel in the New Testament, it's always followed by the gospel of the kingdom. The gospel of the kingdom. The gospel of the kingdom. It's the good news that there's going to be a better way. It's the good news that there's an alternate way of living. It's the good news that shalom is on the way.
People do not get.
Right.
Even when they read it, they miss the kingdom.
They miss the kingdom.
I'm like,
and
how do you sit and say that you read the Bible and you study it and then you get up and preach it and you get up and teach it and all this, but I don't see many pastors preach
because
kingdom.
Because it doesn't fit into the BPs. Okay.
You're teaching. Thank you.
And I'm not mad. I mean, I was involved in that too.
Yeah.
I tried my best to do the BPs. But
you learned something different.
I learned something different. I began to understand church. I began to understand what kingdom is really all about. And
it's not about competition.
It's not about competition.
It's really not. When you really follow God, and you one thing I'll say about our race, we're history makers. Okay? We love to be the first. I'm the first, and I'm not saying that's not a good thing, but you can't be the first and stay the first. You gotta be able to see, okay, God allowed me to be the first to be an example. Now let others eat off of what you became the first of, and allow other people to do. It may be similar, but God made us one of a kind, so we don't have to worry about competing. If you really know God,
well, Jesus said,
you get what I'm saying?
Jesus said that the disciples told Jesus one day, they said, hey, we had to stop these cats because they're over there healing folks in your name. He said, why are you stopping them?
Why are you stopping them?
Well, just because they're not walking with us, they don't need to let them go ahead and do what they're doing. You know, but my thing is that when we start seeing it, I believe that our churches should look like our communities. We complain about the communities are not, they're drug affected, they're craziness going on, they're shooting each other. But we got all these churches in the community, and nothing's changing in the community. Nothing's changing in the community.
This is what I don't understand about it, and you can please explain this to me. True evangelism is in your community, being out in the community. It's not in a building. I don't understand about our churches that we want to keep everything in house, okay? But we want to say we work in our yes. We want to say we work in our community, but we don't see you in the community. We don't see you getting your hands dirty. Yeah. We do not see you telling your members, hey, let's go help Pastor Battle. If that means going to pick the beans, if that means, do you get what I'm saying?
I got saved the second time. You know, you got to have more than one story. when I was in college. When I was in Campus Crusade for Christ, right?
Yes.
And we had the 4 spiritual laws. You know, God loves you and has a wonderful plan. I knew that whole thing, you know. And every church I pastored, I taught them the 4 spiritual laws, talking about going out and evangelism. Then it struck me one day, because I would go to McDonald's and get my coffee every morning. And how long are you in the coffee when you're in the drive-thru and you see the 30 seconds?
Yeah.
A minute is long.
Yes.
30 seconds.
Yes.
But it's amazing what you can learn about.
Is McDonald's coffee that good?
I thought so.
Okay. I'm going to go try it. I used to work at McDonald's, but back then I wasn't drinking no coffee. So wait a minute, keep going.
But it's amazing what you can learn about people in 30-second interactions. You know, I would go through there, and the same lady every pastor prayed for my son. He's you know, hey pastor, how you doing? You know, I'm like, And so I started approaching it like this. I think I got to a point where I discouraged the church, discouraged them from going out taking these pamphlets and knocking on doors. So, no, we ain't doing that one. Yeah. Why are we gonna knock on a stranger's door who we don't know, take them through this 4 spiritual laws, or take them down the Romans road of evangelism or salvation or whatever, and they'll say a sentence prayer, and then boom, we'll say next. Okay? I'm like, no, let's not do it. Let's do what we call a relational evangelism. You know, and that's what we try to do at the farm. You know, we try to live our life in such a way that people will ask us why we do what we do. Peter talks about it in First Peter talks about, you know, always be prepared to make a defense for your faith. But what be prepared for what? Because people should be asking you, why do you do this, Chris?
Yes.
why are you so kind to me and
So
everybody
you
else?
can share.
Then I can share why. But it's a result of the relationship, not because I knocked on your door. You know, you've seen an example of it.
Yes.
You've seen an example of love. You've seen an example of mercy. You've seen an example of grace.
And they need to see it in your wall.
And I got folks that walk by my garden every day, and some of them have even taken ownership. You know,
right.
I saw somebody walking through. I told them to get out. I mean, you know,
you're right,
you
right.
know, because they know me. They have a relation. I had a guy who was a houseless fellow, and we were loading up the truck one day, and he said, "Pastor, I need to talk with you." Okay. When we get finished, I'll talk with you. I said, okay. It was just kind of strange.
Right.
All right. So we got finished with what we were doing, and then he went into his backpack, and then I saw it. And I knew what he was saying. And he came to me and said, because what it was a camera he had stolen.
Okay.
It was a camera he had stolen. And he said, I took it, and I'm sorry, I apologize. When I took it when we first met, but when I realized what you guys are doing here, guilt was kicking his behind.
Oh,
you know?
wow.
And he said, I hope you don't think. I said, brother, I think more of you now.
Yes.
You know, I have, you know,
because you made a mistake, but you tried to rectify
it.
it.
And you did rectify it.
Yes.
He did rectify it.
But it goes back to what you said a few minutes ago when you said, you know, I was part of that belief of building churches up that way, but I don't think that way anymore. So you changed, your belief changed, so your walk changed. So I to the church part of it, I'm like, we all going to make mistakes, but the one thing we have to do is we got to grow, and we have to be able to let God work in us. I mean, that type thing. And I'll never forget, early in my walk with God, I was going to this church, and I thought very highly of the pastor and the wife and the first lady. And I'll never forget, a Christmas came. And I do a huge Christmas party every year, show appreciation to my clients and all that, just say thank you. And then people in the community that has helped me all year long refer to me. And I'll never forget that I'm a tree person, Christmas tree person. So I put up a lot of trees every year. And so people will call me and ask me to come see the trees. And so I'll never forget, I was going to this church, and to me, I feel like God gave me my house, not just for me and my family. He gave it to me to share. And so I've had church cookouts here. I've had all kinds of events here, okay? So this particular Christmas, I was talking to the pastor and first lady, and I said, oh, so-and-so, so-and-so, so-and-so is coming to see the trees tonight. You know, so we're going to have hot cocoa and this and different stuff and some snacks. You should come by. I'll never forget this pastor said, and his wife said, you are inviting those people to your church, to your house? And I said, what? You're inviting them? You don't want all them in your house. Pastor Battle, that's literally hit me like a ton of bricks.
Yeah.
Because this is why it hit me. I'm like, these people are members of your church, and you're calling them that people, those people.
We were taught, the Bible says it, you know, shun. You know, there's some folks you need to be shunning and everything. And it hit me one day, the people that we shun, we stay away from, that we don't invite to come to our house to see the Christmas trees and have hot cocoa with, are the same people Jesus was sitting with. You know, and I'm like, whoa, if Jesus can sit with them.
And those are the same people that if things got tough and you got sick, them the same people that would show up and nurse you back to health. But to hear a pastor tell me to not invite them to my house like they are a different set of people and that like they are not worthy,
Well, see,
I was in shock.
And I think that's the problem. I think that's one of the problems with our church. That's a whole nother issue.
Right.
That's but most of our churches don't look like our communities. They just don't.
They don't.
You know? And
nobody wants to admit that.
Yeah, and I mean, because we got white collar churches, we got blue collar churches, we got no collar churches.
Yes.
I had a lady at my first church. My first church in Bowling Green was a first church. It was
right,
and it was one of those. They had anyway.
Yes.
And I asked the lady walking down the street. I'll never forget. I said, "Won't you come join us at church?" She goes, "I don't wear silk drawers." And she kept on.
She said
that to me. I'll never
forget. Battle. People say crazy.
They say crazy things to me. They say crazy, and particularly at the farm, I can.
Yes, I bet.
But that's the beauty of it to me. That's the beauty of it to me, that people can say what they need to. Because a lot, I don't tell folk I'm pastor. I don't. I'm farmer. I'm the gardener. You know why? Because when you tell people you're pastor, they treat you differently. They talk differently.
When you put a title on it, I tell people, titles, we make titles. Titles don't make us. Yeah. If your name does not stand for anything, when people say to me, now, like if I go to like an event that we have to use our titles in real estate or something like that, then I'm going to say, Yvonnca Landes, I'm a realtor, da-da-da. But outside of that, I'm Yvonnca Landes, okay? Because my name means something to me. You know what I'm saying? But I think a lot of times people get caught up into titles and position because they don't think highly of themselves and don't think and haven't done anything to gain respect to their name through life. And that's where you have to tap into yourself and say, where am I lacking and where do I need to get better? That title is more important than my name.
Yeah.
I mean, you know what I'm saying?
I feel you on
that. And so let me ask you this. So of today, if you could give advice to pastors, what would be, name 2 things that you would say if I was standing up in front of a whole bunch of pastors and they were asking me about making an impact in ministry? What would be the 2 things that you would say, make sure you try this or do this?
I think I'd say 2 things.
Okay.
1, cooperate and collaborate. Don't fight each other.
That's a whole word right there.
We had when I was pastoring Tabernacle, me and the wife were going down the street one day driving, and we started counting the churches that were on or about Martin Luther King. This was back in early 2000s. And we counted 15 churches. Basically 3 schools.
Okay.
I'm like, what if we all work together and each, from this point here, we could work with Vine, this school here could work with Fair Garden, these churches here could work with AE. We could adopt these churches, we can have impact in these schools. And I tried my best
to get it going.
But nobody wanted to work there.
No.
Some girls got into a fight. And this kind of what motivated it. These girls 2 girls from Vine got into a fight. And I'm like, why don't we get our churches together and have a patrol?
Yes.
Go down,
yes.
after school. And because first I asked the church, and nobody's crickets. Nobody responded. I asked the other church, I reached out to pastors. They ain't fighting. Call the police. I mean, those are literally the responses I get. Mm-hmm. I went to the secular community and they all showed up. Yeah. So cooperation and collaboration. I think the second thing, well, I might have 3 things. Cooperation and collaboration. Kingdom-minded, which kind of goes with the first, but kingdom-minded, to build community, to build shalom, to look at more than your location.
And let me say this, he may not want to say it. Community is not inside your church.
Yeah. When I say community, I'm talking about the geographic location around your church.
Do you hear what he said?
That's what I'm talking about.
Community is not, I think in our community, the Black culture, I don't think nobody's teaching that.
I'm learning that they don't. I teach.
You get what I'm saying?
I teach at Johnson University, right? And one of the class I teach is called Thriving Church, Thriving Communities.
Yes.
And my whole argument for that class is whatever matrix you use, the BPs,
yes,
to determine a thriving for your church, if it's not happening in your community,
correct,
it's not happening at all.
Yeah. So you got to come out of the churches, and you have to realize that when you're saying collaborate, you got to come together, and you have to be able to see that sometimes the problem is not, we'll sit and say the opposite race, or we'll sit and say about different things, but sometimes it could be just in our mindset of changing our mindset and telling your congregation it's okay.
When I was pastoring in Cincinnati,
to go out
we had planted a church,
mm-hmm.
and we had actually purchased an old Kingdom Hall.
Okay.
And there was a bar across the street from our church, and some folks were using our parking lot for to go to the bar. Well, I got a little attitude.
Okay.
They go to the bar, can't come to church, right?
Yes.
And I never forget. I said, I'm gonna put a chain up here so they can stop, coming up in here.
Yeah.
And something told me to go talk to my church and community teacher, professor at the school.
Okay.
I said, man, let me tell you what I'm thinking. Let me tell you what's happening. He looked at me and said, Chris, what message does that give? You don't want them folk here. He said, what you need to do is go to the owner of the bar and tell him that your parking lot is available. That they can park in as much as they want. Just don't throw bottles on the ground.
Right.
And I left them.
Exactly. That ain't what I want to hear.
But I did.
Okay.
I did. And because what they didn't. Interesting thing is they didn't park over there.
Okay.
But what I learned, what I realized is, I could have made an enemy, or I could have made a friend, or been just a good neighbor.
Do y'all hear what he's saying? Is a lot of times when you're fighting against the grain of something, sometimes it's better to go and have a conversation. I think a lot of times we get angry and we cut off conversation and we cut off communication when God wants us to build the kingdom, and He wants us to bring people to the kingdom.
We're trying to stop people from doing what most of us are doing. You know what I'm saying? Let me get a drink too.
You better preach, Pastor.
But I'm saying, just because I close off my parking lot, that ain't gonna stop the people from the bar.
It's not.
And because it's about relationship.
It is.
It's about relationship. You probably got people going through AA who are whatever going through. Those are the ones that need to be ministering there.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? And I had a guy once. He said, "I'll preach on the streets and everything." I said, "We're going down." We're going out there. Let me see you preach. He walked out my office, went to the on the sidewalk, and started preaching to the cars going by.
Did he?
And I'm like, look at this fool. He's preaching to cars driving by. Who gonna hear him? Nobody.
No.
You just making noise. Yes. It ain't even joyful because can't nobody hear it.
He said it's not a joyful noise.
It ain't even a joyful noise. Third thing. Follow your passion.
Okay.
God has a way. What I've learned is this: when I started the gardening thing, like I said, it changed. My trajectory changed. My passion changed. I still love preaching. I don't know if I'll ever pastor in the institutional church again.
Okay.
I can't see that. But I love preaching. Don't get that wrong.
Right.
But it's the gardening thing. It's the feeding people. It's the giving people health. That's my
ministry
passion.
Comes in all forms.
And what I've learned is this. I've learned a couple things from that. One, when you follow your passion, you're less likely to burn out. Okay, you can, but
Yep.
you're less likely.
Yep.
Because you do what you love and you love what you do.
There you go.
Secondly, your passion attracts like passions. So when you know who everybody love Chris Battle, right? But gardeners, farmers, people concerned about climate control, climate care,
Yes.
vegans, vegetarians, they love what I do.
Yes.
Love people who are justice. They love what we're doing, and they're coming.
And they reach out
and they reach out. And thirdly,
and offer a hand.
not only some offer hands, but they offer financing and
Yes.
support.
And you've got to have that.
Yeah.
I tell people, you know, a lot of times people will be like, "Oh, the church, you know, the money and all that stuff." And I'm like, okay, no, wait a minute. I see both sides of it. I said, because no, it shouldn't be about the money. Okay? But at the same time, the church does have to have money to grow and pay bills.
But
So
see, the question though is this.
it can't be all about that though.
It can't be.
Yeah.
I looked at our budget once, and I got angry.
Okay.
I'm like, we're spending almost 80% of our budget on salaries and maintaining this building.
Yeah.
And I got, in that part, it was the maintaining the building, but I needed a salary. But
Yeah,
it was
I need my
it
salary.
was maintaining of the building part that bugged me. I'm like, we're spending a lot of money keeping this building up to par, KUB, all of that, and nobody's here.
You better say that.
90% of the time, this church goes empty. Something's wrong with that.
So you're paying to house a building
for Sunday morning.
For a Sunday morning and no one's here. And that's what I don't get. I'm like, you gotta get out of the building. You gotta go out.
Jesus said, build my church. Upon this rock I'll build my church. But he never said I'm building a building.
He never said that.
Never.
But that's
matter of fact, he said the temple was gonna come down and it ain't been built back yet.
Okay.
I ain't
but
preaching.
the problem is we've been taught in our generation and back that you got to go to church, you got to do this, you got to do that, you got to do that. It's all about church. But if you really read that Bible and you really, first of all, God said put him first. He didn't say the church. If you really look in the order, church is farther down on God's order. I mean, you know what I'm saying? Of who comes first. He said put him first. And I think that was the biggest thing that taught me when I was in the hospital with David was because I couldn't go to church anymore because I was at a hospital. So I had to find church within me. I had to build it up in me. I had to search for God in me.
I had a lady tell me once, she goes, because they had left the church they were at, and because the husband got called to a church, whatever, and they had to, and she told me, oh, I so miss the relationship, the fellowship of the other. I'm like,
yes.
Why you miss it? I'm like, you can't see them on other days of the week.
She's looking for the get down.
You know, I'm like, I couldn't figure. I'm like, you mean you miss them on Sunday morning?
Yes.
You miss them, you know, in
yes.
the choir. But I mean, it's not like you can't see them throughout the week, you know. And I think it's that matrix. I remember when I left the pastor and quit going to
church,
institutional church. It took a while to get that out my system. You know, I mean, it's because you're like, oh, I didn't go to church. I done sinned and fallen short of the glory.
I remember that.
You know, and I'm like,
I remember feeling that.
And I felt like that. And sometimes, I mean, even when I go now, I love it.
Yes.
And pieces of me miss it.
Yes.
You know, but
you miss the good times, but you don't miss the other part.
You know, but I'm not gonna go.
But you know, the biggest part about that is that, like how you said you missed it, I missed it. Okay. But I can honestly say this. This may not be your walk, but I can honestly say this. I do more ministry now than I ever did when I was in the church. I do way more in my community. I do way more reading the word and seeking him and praying way more
Yeah.
than I ever did. And I remember when I first stopped going in the hospital, coming out, because David couldn't eat or feed himself. He couldn't walk or anything, so I still couldn't go. You know what I'm saying? When I got out. And I never forget, before I left the hospital, I'm like, oh, I can't wait till I can go to church service. But then it came that I couldn't when David got out. And the more and more I grew in Christ, that desire went away.
Yeah.
The desire of him came stronger, and that desire, and then I was like, well, then I started, there was different pastors started asking me to speak at their church, and I'm like, I said to my husband, I'm like, wow, they really want to hear what I got to say. And I'm like, really?
And I'm not saying what we have now needs to be destroyed. I do think it needs to be reformed.
It does.
Okay. I think it needs a restructuring.
And people need to see God.
And yeah, well, and I'm not saying they don't. I'm not saying they aren't truly saved. I'm not saying that Jesus is. I'm not saying that. I'm just saying that there is something about buildings that stop the movement.
It does. It does.
That causes us to miss the kingdom.
I think the building is honestly, what's the word? Intimidating to people. I don't think God is intimidating, but the building and the pressure of going to that building is intimidating to the world now. So people are
well,
like,
I would say,
you get what I'm saying?
I wouldn't say intimidating. I think the word I would use is welcoming.
It's not as welcoming, and it's kind of, you know.
But that's because the people aren't.
Yeah, but I'm gonna tell you what my husband said. My husband's from Pittsburgh, and he said,
I hate Pittsburgh.
And
I'm from Cincinnati.
Oh, okay.
Who they? Go Bengals.
Look, y'all know black and yellow. Black and yellow. But David made a valid point to me. He said, Yvonnca, I have to say, he said, if I was not married to you, my husband grew up, his adopted parents was white. David had never been in a predominantly black church till he got with me. We've been together almost 25 years. I took him to our churches. I took him to, he got to see the good and the real bad and the ugly, okay? And he said, Yvonnca, they're not welcoming at all. He said, if I wasn't married to you, he said, I'd feel like an outsider. And I was like, really? And he's like, seriously, Yvonnca? And he goes, and I'm not from here, but I had been in the church realm for so long that several people knew me, so that they were more accepting to him. But for somebody that walks in the door, that does, I'm just being honest, that does not have a big checkbook, okay, does not look like what whoever thinks they need to look like. And that's what I struggle with, because I'm like, it shouldn't be about what someone looks like and what checkbook they can write.
It was interesting when I got here.
You get me?
Oh yeah, I know, because I had locks when I first moved here.
Oh, did you?
Yeah.
Okay.
And I mean, they were halfway down my back.
Okay.
You know, and I had guys, some Christian might want to cut those locks off before. I'm like, I ain't cutting those locks off.
Yes, I ain't cutting the locks.
And I had guys that I knew got up in the pulpit and preaching against locks. You know, then look at me. Oh, not you, Chris. Oh yeah, you meant me.
Yeah, you like locks is locks.
But again, I think when we can look beyond people's faults and our own faults, and you know, and begin to see people from the created in the image of God, that are kingdom builders, that are part of our community, then that changes everything. For me, it did. You know, it changes everything. I don't care I don't care what color you are. I don't even care what gender you claim. Okay? You know, the kingdom there's a space in the kingdom for you. And if we reject
there's a space
in the
kingdom for you.
If I reject you, if I cut you off, you'll never be able to see.
You said you'll never be able to see it. I am really enjoying this conversation with Pastor Battle. Tune in next Friday for part 2 of this powerful, powerful conversation. Bye, guys.
Thanks for listening to Talkin' Tennessee with Yvonnca. Watch out for our weekly episodes from the First Family of Real Estate and check us out on the web, www.yvoncasalesrealestate.com. See our videos on Yvonca's YouTube channel or find us on Facebook under Yvonnca Landes and Twitter at Yvonnca Landes. And don't forget to tell a friend about us. Until next time, Yvonnca signing off.